and welcome. You're watching Heads Up. Curiosity is an intrinsic part of human nature. Growing up as children, one of the first questions we learned to ask was why. And even as adults, we continue to question and ponder at things. Psychology and psychologists apply that same universal curiosity to observe and examine the relationship between one's environment and their behavior.
And that's why youngsters are now queuing up to explore a career in this interesting and ever-evolving field. Be it schools, colleges, hospitals, or for that matter, even organizations. Everyone needs a psychologist. So how do you plan your career accordingly so that you make the most of these opportunities that are out there for you? Let's find out. Observing human behavior has always been Nandita's hobby from a very young age. This, combined with an inclination towards pursuing medicine, prompted Nandita to explore a career in psychology. While pursuing her graduation from Delhi University in psychology was a piece of cake, post-graduation, however, was a completely different story.
While I was getting into the field, abnormal, child, social, all of this was bombarded into my mind, I guess. And there was internship also, different hospitals, different NGOs. And then it started off that I wanted certain fields that I was really interested in. It started with clinical psychology. Then I wanted to do sex therapy. Then it was addiction, marriage, forensic. These were some of the broad highlights. But in India, we always have a trouble talking about these things. Addiction, it's a taboo. Sex, again. So I had to literally, slowly, step by step, get into some parts of it.
Today, more such fields of psychology that were once considered a taboo are opening up. Some of the top choices in the conventional streams include clinical psychology, child psychology, special education teacher, and social counseling. When we look at the industry-wise talent demand, 46% opt for education or training, 43% take up healthcare, and 6% opt for social services.
Either they go into industrial organizational psychology or child or clinical psychology. But now, just as there are several branches of psychology, careers are also there in all these branches. But here in Mount Carmel College, our first MSc program, we give them a base in the traditional branches, that is clinical and industrial psychology. Along with this, there are allied subjects. So we introduce them to sports psychology, counseling skills, basic counseling skills, school psychology, media psychology, positive psychology, and counseling special groups, because counseling is something that later on, even with an industrial psychology background, they should be able to do. So that way we prepare them, we give them the basis. Later on, after they get their specialization, they can get into the field of their choice and make a mark there.
So how do you plan a career in psychology? After completing a basic graduation with psychology as one of your core subjects, you can proceed to specializing at the postgraduate level. That is, do an MA or MSc and finally pursue an MPhil or PhD in your chosen field. One of the biggest challenges that most potential psychologists face in the initial stages of their career is poor remuneration, but professionals believe gaining experience changes this.
Initially, it doesn't pay very well as a field because you want to get a lot of experience. It also takes a lot of experience to really become a good counselor or a good psychologist. I mean, initially the study just gears you up to do a very basic minimum. But then you need a whole lot of experience. So while you're gaining that experience, I don't think you would earn very well, except for industrial psychology, where you earn much better. But in other areas, it would take you time. But then when you establish yourself over a period of time through your experience, and you can address a wide variety of populations, then it makes more sense. Financially also, it becomes more viable, and then there's more work also for you.
That's precisely the reason why young psychologists are turning to industrial and organizational psychology and specializing in tasks like employee recruitment, hiring, training and retention. Startups too are roping in psychologists as part of their human resource team and encouraging them to research constantly.
an industrial psychologist works very closely with the HR team, HR department. So they are into recruiting, training, they study the employer-employee relationship, try to improve or enhance the morale of the employees, all this in order to increase the productivity of the industry. They also work with the research and development wing, a lot of scope, and it's also more paying when compared to other fields of psychology. If you're talking about school as an organization, school counselors, most of the schools, reputed schools, take in school counselors. Earlier, only one counselor would be taken. For one single person to understand the emotions of children within that school would be difficult. So now there's a team of counselors in many of these reputed institutions, and they work as a team improving children's behavior and academic performance.
So that was a small peek into the career of an organizational psychologist. Now my colleague Mrinali from Bangalore gets us more details on this career option.
Dr. Sudha Bhogle has been in the field of psychology for the past 30 years. She had a keen interest in medicine, but being too young, she opted for psychology and soon developed a passion for it. She completed her bachelor's in psychology at Mount Carmel College, Bangalore. She then pursued her master's and doctorate in psychology at Bangalore University and later joined as a lecturer. In 2007, Dr. Bhogle left her position to become a full-time counselor and organizational psychologist.
In 2007, I realized that I could do much more for psychology by getting out and applying it. So from 2007 till now, I have been with Eduquity, and I head EduCafe, which is the student solution, applying psychology, talking about careers in psychology and of psychology to students.
Organizational or industrial psychology is one of the most opted branches of psychology. It applies psychological theories and principles to organizations and individuals in their workplace.
We all know in general, out there, doctors are looking after the health of us and other thing, and we take care of the health of organization, wherein understanding organizational culture and what is the job satisfaction of an individual when it comes to from an employee perspective, in that sense. So we take care of understanding the health of individual and his relationship with his employer, and if there is any gap, we bridge in that gap.
Effective communication, conflict resolution, and professional competence are necessary components for businesses to succeed. Shortcomings in any of these areas can be traced back to how employees are selected, trained, or interact. Industrial psychologists use their knowledge of human behavior to address these challenges.
It all boils down to, again, mapping individuals, profiles to see what they're best suited to do for the kind of role they've been selected for, the job role that they're selected for. So constantly there's the whole idea is to see whether you're the right fit, not the best fit. And that's what our whole psychology team does, based on the assessments that are built. The psychologists, what they normally do is to see whether you're actually measuring the right thing. And once you start measuring it, then you do the analysis.
In some cases, the work of organizational psychologists and human resource managers may overlap. However, industrial psychologists provide research and assessment to HR managers for the purpose of strategy development or hiring and decision-making processes.
HR manager would be more of with the management of an employer, wherein they would be looking after the other deeds of which is related to compensation or even like promotion, appraisals and other thing and all. But wherein with regards to a psychologist, organizational psychology, we are more towards the employee well-being. We actually look into how well he'll be suited to that particular job, and how we can support them in terms of performing better, more in terms of making his position stable in that organization.
The fine line that separates HR from organizational psychologists is also one of their biggest drawbacks. Dr. Bhogle believes that hiring a candidate for a job is in the end. A psychologist's greatest challenge lies in assessing the candidate to ensure that he or she will fit into the work culture and want to retain their position for a long time.
How do you get someone, train them, get them fitted into the culture, and then they leave and you start all over again? Okay? So employees coming in, we have students, we have so many with mental health problems. We have young people earning more on their first pay than what their fathers earned when they retired. So the sudden money that is coming in, living on installments, EMI, so getting a red pink slip is one of the worst things that can happen in their life. These are issues that an organization psychologist would have to work.
With rapid urbanization and globalization, workplaces today are teeming with different cultures. It becomes absolutely crucial for employees to be able to adjust to their work environment. Dr. Sudha believes that this is where the role of an organizational psychologist is crucial, if not vital.
In today's world with globalization, you need people who fit all types of cultures. And if your employees fit that, nothing like it. But to select people, human beings are so complex. We need tests, psychometric tools that can capture not only cognitive. Cognitive is very easy to capture. Marks in your exams give you an indication generally. It is the non-cognitive traits, your personality traits, your communication skills, the so-called soft skills, that finally decide how well you fit. And that is where psychologists can play a role.
It's time for a short break. On the other side, I talk to a couple of aspiring psychologists from Mount Carmel College in Bangalore. Stay tuned.